if you want to look at it. If you want to look at it with your student, you could do that as well. But something I want to say before we even dive in, because it might feel like a lot of information, is we have all memorized this information. So we will actually be sitting down with your student one-on-one in the spring to go over all of this and their transcript and their classes for next year. And we do that with them every year. So, it's a really important part of our job that we see that each of our students are meeting the requirements that are in line with the goals that they have. So you don't have to have this memorized. It's good information for you to have, but we store it all in our brain. You don't need to. So the A through G requirements is kind of the labeling system that the UCs and CSUs use to describe their entrance requirements. And while most private and out-of-state colleges that we're familiar with also have similar requirements, it is on students and families to research, if you have looking at a school that's outside of California, to make sure you research and see what their requirements are, although they will be similar. So it's 15 total college prep courses that a student must earn a C- or better in to be considered having met that requirement. So I'm going to kind of go over all this for you again. I know it's a lot of information. We have got a few columns here that explain the differences. So high school graduation requirements are a little bit less in some areas than what the colleges require, obviously. So you can see there, we've got social studies as our first category, and that's the A of the A through G. For high school graduation from SRV, USD, we've got world geography, which our 9th graders take, world history, which our 10th graders take. As you know, we have other options for that class like AP Euro. US history, again, we have an AP United States history if a student chooses, and also Gov and Econ, which is also offered in AP if students wish. So that's just for social studies for high school graduation. And this is actually one where the district requirements for graduation are actually a little bit less than what the or actually a little bit more, sorry, than what the Cal States and UCs require. So if you look over to the next two columns, you'll see we've got 1 year of world history and 1 year of US history or Gov, right, for CSUs, and then over there we've got the same for UC. So the difference is we require world geo and Gov, whereas it's a little bit different for UCs and CSUs. So if a student is in our district and they're taking the classes that we require for graduation and they pass with a C- or better, they will be on track for UC and CSU admission. English, it's the same across the board. So we've got 4 years of English required graduation from our district. They also require that at CSU and UC. And I just want to point out for UC and CSU, it says 4 years of CP, and that just stands for college prep. And all of our English classes, really all of our core classes in every subject area are college prep. So you don't have to worry, is my student taking the right English class? All of our English classes, math, science, they're all college prep. So we don't need to worry about that. For math, this often surprises people, but it's just 2 years required for math for high school graduation. One of those does need to be Algebra 1. And then it goes a little bit more for UC and CSU. Algebra 2 is kind of like the gateway class. You've got to get through Algebra 2 to be eligible for UC and CSU and pretty much any college I've ever seen. But we recommend 4 years of math for all of our students. A 4-year college bound or not, we feel that 4 years of math is just equals a good high school education. So we do recommend 4 years for every student regardless.
We haven't gotten this question yet, but I'm anticipating, Ms. Bellini. What if my student did Algebra 1 in middle school?
That's absolutely fine. So you can take Algebra 1 in middle school. They'll end up taking Algebra 2 with us, right? So that will be that high school graduation algebra requirement anyway. But once we see Algebra 1 on the transcript from middle school, that meets the requirement as well. And so this happens with both world language and math, that some middle school students are able to, they take those classes in middle school, and those are the only classes from middle school that actually end up on the high school transcript, world language and math, if it's Algebra 1 or higher. And I just saw a question, someone asking about 4th year math options. Once you hit Algebra 2, you can go on to pre-calculus or honors pre-calculus if you like. And then we also have statistics and AP statistics from there. So those are mostly, we also have a class called data science that you can take, actually can take at the same time as Algebra 2 if you want.
All right.
Okay, so going on to science, 2 years of science is required for the most part for all parties here. 1 year of physical, 1 year of life science. So life science is your biology type class. Physical science is chemistry or physics. So if a student took those classes, they would be eligible for pretty much all of these schools. But for UCs, especially the more selective UCs, a 3rd year of science is certainly recommended. So after a student takes chemistry, really kind of the options are wide open for them we have a lot of science classes here at Cal High. So we've got, AP Bio, AP Chem, anatomy and physiology, marine biology. There's a lot of science options for them to take. So once they do their year of life science, which is biology, and then their year of physical science, which is either chem or physics, it kind of opens up for them and they could do that 3rd year. And we've got world language. This is where it gets a little complicated, this table. And so there's kind of 3 areas of art, and world language is considered an art in this sense. So if your student wants to go straight to a 4-year college, they need to do 2 years, 2 levels of world language, 3 recommended for UC. So you're kind of noticing that probably that for UC, it's always kind of a little bit more for the recommended. So 3rd level, I should say, recommended for world language. And also a visual or performing art is required for UC and CSU. So that's Art 1, ceramics, digital photo, regular photography, choir, band, drama, all of those fine and performing arts. 1 year of that is required for UC and CSU. However, if your student is wanting instead to go to a community college after high school or another post-grad plan that does not include a 4-year university, they have to just do 1 year of any 2 of those 3 categories of world language, visual performing art, or vocational art. I haven't really talked about that one yet. Vocational art is things like culinary arts, computer science, engineering, things that are really directly connected to a vocation. And so any classes like that are not required for a UC or CSU, but it is an option to do for a student if they are not wanting to go straight to a 4-year.
For our lovely attendees, if you could do us a favor and put your questions in the Q and answer instead of the chat, it makes it a lot easier to keep track of which we answered and which we still need to look at. So let's just go over a couple of these. For UCs, is the 3rd year of science required for performing art students as well? It's just a general recommendation for UC admissions. So it might not be weighted as heavily if they're reviewing a student who's looking at the performing arts versus if you're applying for a biology major, they're definitely going to want to see you've done a lot of science in high school. But the 3rd year of science is their recommendation for all applicants.
I see this question's asking about specific courses that are college approved by specific colleges. All of our classes are high school classes. So we do have AP classes, and if a student scores well on the AP test at the end, colleges could award college credit for that class, but all of our classes here at Cal High are high school and they'll get high school credit. So it doesn't count for college credit.
Yeah, I'm also seeing a lot of questions about specific courses. The course catalog is linked on the district website. It's linked on our counseling website. I really recommend looking at that if you're looking about what kinds of classes students can take in certain areas or what the prerequisites are for those classes. What do you do in those classes? We also are going to have a course offerings fair in January where students can go and talk to the different teachers of those classes to learn more about what it's like to be a student in that class. So definitely encourage your student to do that.
Okay, do we want to go to the next slide? Okay, so the next The next line we have on here is health. You'll notice it doesn't have an A through G requirement because it is one of the classes that is not actually A through G course, but it is a requirement for our district high school graduation. So your ninth graders are taking 1 semester of health and 1 semester of world geography as part of their ninth grade schedule. And again, as you see, this isn't required for Cal State or UC, but it is required for district graduation. PE, same story. 2 years of PE is required, PE 9, and then 1 additional year of PE, but not required for UC and CSU. And that just means they don't look at those courses. They're not interested in those courses. It's not part of their 15 core courses that they do consider when it comes to admissions. And as you know, as you may know, for PE, if a student plays a Cal High sport, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, they can receive 1 year PE credit for that 1 season of sport played, but not in the ninth grade. Ninth grade, they have to take PE 9. And they can also earn 5 credits of PE through marching band per semester. And then we have this electives line, and this electives line often confuses people because they see 60 credits. I have to take 60 credits of elective, and it doesn't actually quite work that way. So what we notice is that so many of our students take more than what I've just described here, right? They take more than 3 years of math. They take more than 2 years of science. They take more than 2 years of world language. So anything that they take in any of the previous categories over the minimum requirement counts towards these elective credits. So we really only have a few classes on our campus that only count as the G elective. And a student doesn't actually ever have to take one of those. They can take an additional class. Maybe they love art and they take art 1, 3, and AP. And those are all visual and performing arts credits, but anything over the 1 year required will come out of that elective credit. So we very rarely ever need to worry about a student not having enough elective credit. It really just happens organically as they take a full schedule here with us every year. And so here you've got down at the bottom the totals. To graduate from Srvusd, you need to earn 220 credits with a grade of a D- or higher. So for graduation and to move on to a community college or straight to the workforce or the military or what have you, a D- is sufficient. But if a student wants to go straight to a 4-year college, they need to earn a C- or higher in all of the classes I just described. And so if a student does, have a situation where they earn lower than a C-, but want to go straight to a 4-year, then that's when we're talking about remediating a class that either by taking it in summer school through the district, sometimes they'll just retake the class in the following school year. So there's lots of ways to remediate a class if needed. So I never want my students worrying that one misstep, one tough semester can kind of, determine their future. It certainly does. It doesn't. So there's lots of ways to remediate and fix those things up.
We did get a question about how can you see your students' progress? The best way to do that would be to look at your students' transcript, which is available in their Infinite Campus portal. So it's a couple of clicks to find it, but if you go under documents and then you scroll all the way down, there's something called portal transcript. And there you'll be able to see all the classes they've taken so far, their grades, and their progress on their course graduation requirements.
Yeah, and I have someone here asking about the semester grade. So we have, as you may know, we have 2 semesters, and each semester, like the one we're going to end next week, that grade is the final grade for this semester, and they start fresh next semester. So both semester grades are the ones that count, not just the end of the year.
Ms. Bellini, could you talk a little bit about the difference between a regular course and an honors course?
Yeah, and I think I saw that question too, and I think that what you said about going to the course catalog is an important part of that. So we'll talk a little bit about the difference between, say, physics and honors physics. Kind of generally speaking, though, an honors class is it's more rigorous. It's going to go into more depth, and chances are it's going to go at a faster pace than the regular college prep class. A student would receive a weighted grade for the honors class. So that is kind of the, I suppose, incentive to go with the more difficult class. We really recommend students are just really intentional about which honors or AP classes they choose, if any. And so we offer these types of classes for students who are really, truly interested and passionate about that subject. That's why we offered those classes for students that really want to learn at a deep level and are committing to spending more time at home and homework and studying to that particular area. So we love students to challenge themselves, and but we really warn students against kind of loading up their schedule with honors and AP classes just for the GPA point. We often have students regret doing that because they just take on too much. So the honors classes are there for deep learning for students who are really interested in that subject.
Yeah, and then I've seen a question about for the physical science requirement, any recommendations regarding chem or physics? I would tend to say the frame of this question was a student who struggles with advanced math. I would tend to say there's a little less math involved in that chemistry class, but I would be interested to see if Becky has a different opinion.
For the honors chem, sorry, I was reading a question.
If a student who struggles in math is trying to meet their physical science requirement.
You know, that is such a tough one, right? Most of our students do take chemistry, and I think that what our chemistry department has done in the last several years is, well, it's actually not just our chemistry department, it's the chemistry standards, frankly, that have taken out some of the math that was required maybe when the rest of us took chemistry way back when. I think what I really talk to students about is, where does your interest lie? Have them look at the course catalog. I don't know that either one necessarily is going to be the better choice. I think the better choice is the one that a student looks at what they're going to be learning about and can kind of connect a little bit more to that subject. Most of our students, though, do take chemistry. We have more students in chemistry than we have in physics every year, if that's helpful. The thing with all of this is there is no one size fits all. It just, our jobs would be so easier if that were true. So we really do have to kind of look at each student individually and talk with them about, you know, what they're interested in and what they want to do.
All right.
Okay, so for entrance exams, I did see a few people about this in the Q&A as well. Exams we're talking about SAT and ACT. Community colleges do not require. So a lot of students think it just feels like a rite of passage, right? That we all, you know, people take these tests. And if you're going to a community college and you think you might one day transfer to a university, you don't need to take the SAT. And if you do 2 years at community college and then transfer, they won't have you take the SAT. It's just for high school students going directly to 4-year. So that's the only time anyone would ever need to take this test. CSUs, it's a temporary suspension now driven by COVID. We don't know yet what they're going to do long term. And some people are asking about that. We don't know. And so we're watching closely, just like you probably are.
This verbiage is from their website that they are going to be basically looking at test availability. And if, you know, tests continue to be canceled in the state of California, like, they're the most accessible university system for California students, so they're going to be very sensitive to that. So if tests aren't available, they're not going to hold students to that. I would have a hard time believing they're going to make that a requirement if students aren't able to test. That being said, they are different than UC in that the wording they're using does imply that this is a temporary change, whereas UC, they're going test free.
Have they said, Kelly, that that's it? They're never going back to SAT and ACT?
What they are saying is that they are not using it for the foreseeable future. I don't think they're going back to SAT, ACT at all. They are looking for other exams that they feel are more equitable and provide a better picture. But no, they're not using SAT or ACT for the foreseeable future.
So that's, so the information that we have is the information that you might have found on their websites as well. So we try to stay as up to date as possible.
Well, UC did announce in November that, like, test free until they find a better alternative.
Yeah, I know that I've read things, you know, speculation that they'll be developing their own test, you know, so who knows what's to happen. But I think for those of us on the call that have juniors, probably don't need to worry about this. And again, we will update you all as soon as we hear more information about this. And then for private and out of state, research is certainly required for them. We're happy to sit down with your students too when they have a question, and I'll Google things too. But if they're wondering about a particular school or you are that's out of state or private, then their websites will tell you what they require when it comes to that. And again, many colleges, it was already sort of a trend that was starting before COVID, test optional. And what that means is some students were like, well, it's optional, so does it look bad if I don't? They wouldn't. No, it doesn't. They wouldn't give that an option if they were just going to penalize everyone who didn't do the test. So what we recommend with students who are, applying to schools that are test optional is, and they have actually taken the test, is, use Naviance. And I did see a person asking about Naviance. Naviance is the program that we use for college and career education here. And it's also the tool that seniors use for communicating with us about their college applications, and we send their information through that as well. But in Naviance, there's just so much information about colleges. So they can see what sort of a college's average SAT acceptance is from Cal High. So if Cal High students who have been accepted, what their average SAT score is, we have all that information handy. So they can look at it, and if their score is that or above, then go ahead and submit it. But if it's under what they typically accept from Cal High students, then we say might want to consider keeping that back. So it's really up to students.
All right. Sorry, I was just answering some questions in the Q&A. All right, so we've talked about what the colleges require. At this point, we're going to switch into a little bit about what the colleges are looking for. What are they trying to see when they're evaluating applications? What can they be doing to make sure they're a competitive applicant? So before we get into this, I just always want to remind that doing your best or having your student do their best is more important than being the best. So in colleges, we talk about fit all the time, and that you need to do what's within your abilities and what feels good to you, what aligns with your interests. And then the college process is a two-way street. So you're going to find colleges that fit your needs and that you're going to be successful at. So just focusing on what's in your control within this college process is so important. All right, so we're getting into UC factors for admission. CSU, I don't have a slide on it, and that's because they're the most kind of objective, whereas UC and maybe private schools, they'll do more holistic admissions and look at a lot of different factors. CSU still is very much based on your academic record. There's not spaces in the CSU application to tell them about yourself and your interests. It's very much kind of a more black and white process, which is good for some students and not so good for others. So the UC, however, there are opportunities to tell them about what you were involved with in high school, what your interests are, who you are as a person, what challenges you've overcome. So that's why there's a little more space in the application to show your personality a bit. The biggest thing, every time I've ever sat in a UC panel where we'll do case studies with the admissions counselors for them to tell us how they look at applications, the first thing they bring up and the last thing they bring up and the thing that we hear the most is context. So they are looking for what your student has done within the context of our school and within the context of their abilities. So they're going to be looking at, did they take advantage of some of the different clubs we have to offer? Did they take advantage of the different opportunities that they have being at California high school? So the UC does have information about our campus. So they want to see what your student has done in light of what's available to them. They're not going to be held to doing things that we don't have. They're not expecting your student to really be going outside of our school to do things beyond that. They have everything that they need to be a successful UC applicant right here at our campus. So context is the biggest thing. Then the academic factors, right? So they're looking at not only GPA, but also they're looking at courses of rigor. Are they taking things that align with their interests? How are they showing their interests? And I like to highlight they're looking at overall trends. So it matters a lot to UC to see students either doing better over time or being consistent over time. So yeah, one of their specific points is a marked improvement. So even if your student maybe got off to a rough start, that doesn't mean that they can't be a competitive UC applicant. Talents, involvements, interests. This this factor for UC is like, I swear, this long. They have a whole list of things, and what they bring it back to is they want to have students that are going to contribute to their campus. That might look like community service, that might look like leadership, creativity, talents, academic interests, a whole range of things that, again, highlight their personality. So this is why we really stress to students that being a student is more than just what you're doing at school and what you're doing in your classes. Colleges want you to be involved in clubs. They want you to do extracurriculars. They want you to have hobbies. They want you to make relationships with your friends. That's one of the things that I know Miss Bellini and I, when they're asking for counselor recommendations, and this is not for UC, they want us to tell about the student's character. So that's kind of that catch-all at that UC, that they're looking for that. So if that means taking a couple less AP or honors classes so you can be an athlete, or so you can be in our art programs or lead a club or whatnot, that's a great thing to do. The last one on here is special circumstances. So anything that might help the UC understand the context, not just of our school, but of that student's life. So maybe there was a loss in the family, maybe there's learning disabilities, or maybe the first one in their family to go to college. Any of these special circumstances do shed light on UC admissions. And this website I have linked at, well, it's not linked at the bottom because I knew you couldn't click on it anyway, but if you look at the UC 13 factors for admission, they have a whole page going through all of these different things in depth. These were just the key takeaways that we got looking at the factors. Looking at some questions because I saw them popping up. Yeah, so for students who are wanting to explore careers and things, Naviance would be a great way to do that, which we do talk about with the students in their classes. Sophomores will be hearing from us at the beginning of January. And then the course selection fair, I really encourage students. We have a lot of cool classes here at Cal High. I was in a different district before this, and when I got here, I was amazed by all the really special course offerings we have. So I hope students can explore their interests that way as well.
I'll also just speak on Naviance a little more because quite
Sure.
a few people have asked. And so students all have their Naviance account already. They log in through the student portal, and your student will know what that is if you ask them. And so they just log in through that. And a few people have also asked about parent accounts, and we can activate a parent account if you wish. The only issue with the parent accounts on Naviance, though, is they are view only. Parents really can't do anything. You can kind of just peer into your student's account and kind of see what's there. So we really recommend you logging in with your student so you can see the full experience of what it is. But if you'd like to have your parent account activated, you can email your student's counselor for the code. But again, we don't send it out to everyone because it usually just creates more questions, because you kind of, just the way the program is designed, for some reason, the parent account is, you can really just kind of see some things, but not see the full experience. So we recommend you sit down with your student and look at it. That way you'll have a better idea of what it really is if you do it that way.
I saw a question about how important is attendance and tardies for admissions. It wouldn't necessarily be a factor for admissions, but what I can tell you as a high school counselor is it's definitely a factor in the grades your students are earning in high school.
Oh, and one more about Naviance. It asks, is there a skills test? And that's a really important part of Naviance. There's several self-discovery tools in there that help students figure out their strengths. There's a strengths inventory, there's a career interest survey. There's several of those types of things in there for students to do. And we will be meeting with the sophomore class the week after winter break to talk a little bit more about this with them and show them where to find those things. So the answer is yes, there are different surveys and things for students to help figure out what their path might look like.
All right. Oh, this is a little blurry now that it's bigger. My apologies. So we had just talked about UC. We talked about CSU being a little more black and white. That leaves still thousands of other colleges where you're like, what do they look for? One good way to do that is looking at the college's website. A lot of times they'll tell you very explicitly, these are the things we take into consideration. This is what's called a common data set, which is available for colleges. I just found this by Googling such and such college common data set, and they give you this information about what factors they take into consideration. But what I extra like about it is it also tells you how much of a factor it plays. So you can see the things that this college considers very important, considered, and then not considered at all. So you would be able to see this college, yeah, GPA is important, but really what they care about more is your essays, your recommendations, and your rigor. How are you taking classes that challenge yourself? And then even more so than like extracurricular activities, this college cares about the type of person your student is. Obviously, these can look different for every college, which is why we really encourage our students to, you don't need to get serious about doing your college research, but to keep an open mind and to start thinking about that earlier, just because you'll get a better sense of where you should be putting your effort in. But really the one consistent thing we always tell our students is to be authentic to themselves. If you really love doing community service, maybe that should guide your college process, or that could guide your college process of finding a college that really values the same things you value versus trying to squish yourself into the mold of the college. There's thousands of colleges out there. You can find one that fits you. UC applicants do not use letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation are only for some private and maybe some out-of-state schools. California colleges do not use them.
And I want to just touch a little bit more what you just said about being authentic to yourself. We presented to the juniors a few weeks ago, and I was catching myself saying, well, colleges really like to see a well-rounded person. And I thought, well, hold on. We should seek to be well-rounded people because that's better for you, right? Yes, so colleges want to see that, sure. But I don't want you doing, learning an instrument and doing community service and doing these things because it's what the colleges want to see, right? We want you doing these things because this is how you're spending your life. This is how you're spending your time, and learning who you are. And that's kind of a really important part about the age that they're in right now. And so I think we can get overly focused on what do colleges want to see instead of how do I want to spend my high school years. So we really focus on that with your kids.
Yeah, and I know these conversations also often bring up questions about GPA. And I will say GPA is like one small part of it. They're going to be seeing the whole transcript. They're going to be looking at what classes your student tends to thrive in, what subject areas pull their attention. And in all honesty, I think pretty much every college we talk to recalculates GPA anyway. So what GPA is on your high school transcript isn't ultimately that crucial. Okay. So thinking about what you can do as caregivers and people who love their student and love their child and want them to be successful in their next step. These are kind of more mindsets of what we hope you can help us encourage your student to do. So we've talked a lot about getting involved, being a part of our community. Not only does that help them live a well-rounded life, but we've also found that students tend to be more successful in their classes when they're feeling connected to our campus. So please help them, encourage them to get involved. Exploring their interests, if they're looking to figure out what those interests may be, those Naviance surveys are great. I know I really like the career cluster finder and also the do what you are. Actually, it was recalled personality. So it tells them about their personality, which kids tend to find exciting. They're like, oh yeah, that does sound like me. But then at the bottom, it says different careers that might be related to that. So I think it's a really approachable one to get the students a little bit more interested in this self-discovery piece. So that's the personality on Naviance that I really enjoy. Encouraging balance, that it's okay not to do it all. I know it can oftentimes feel like everyone else is doing more, and that's very stressful. But we're going to see the best results if students are taking care of themselves and learning boundaries as a high school student. I also hear from seniors all the time in senior interviews that we do for letters of recommendation where I ask the student, is there anything you wish you did differently in high school? And I would say 9 times out of 10, they told me They wish they prioritized the fun parts of high school more. They wish they got more involved. Yeah, their classes might not be what they remember. They're going to remember those fun exchanges at lunch with their friends, or the really cool activity they got to do with their club, or their extracurriculars. So hearing that just makes me wish I could give all these seniors a little time machine. That way they could go back and live that how they wanted to. And then lastly, the emotional support. Part of the college process and part of life, honestly, is rejection, which is hard. And sometimes with the colleges, it's not you, it's me. They're looking at an individual application, and to that person on the applicant side, it's, do I get into this college or not? But for the college, they're looking at, who do we need in our class? They're trying to build a whole campus. So it might just be, hey, we have enough trombone players who want to study physics, and it's nothing personal, but it feels really personal when you're the one applying to college. So having that mindset and encouraging your students to just focus on the things that they can control and not the things that they can't. Okay. So we have a little bit of time left, so I just definitely wanted to leave this open for any questions, or if Becky wanted to add on anything.
I'm going through the questions and trying to send answers as quickly as I can. Sorry for my typos. I've been fixing them, but now I think it's faster to not. So
just go for it. Oh, so the question about extracurricular activities, they used to have some, but they stopped due to the pandemic. Colleges know that the pandemic happened. They're living in the same world we are. So unless you were in a coma for the past 2 years, you don't not know that things were affected and disrupted and canceled. So no, if COVID is the reason that your student wasn't able to do some things, they should certainly address that in their application, but I would not be concerned.
I do see a question about AP classes. Someone's asking about AP classes for 9th grade. We really don't have any AP classes available for 9th graders, and they're limited for 10th graders as well. So for 9th grade, we really want students just focusing on especially a year like this year and even next year, as we're sort of just re-entering into the world of school as we once knew it, and the changes that have happened because of everything that's happened in the world. We really just want 9th graders focusing on the transition to high school, being at a much bigger campus than they're used to, having more teachers, maybe being in classes with students they have not known. They might be in a class with no one they know, depending on the situation. So we really just focus on learning to be a student, getting some connections, some social connections here, and all the fun things that are available in high school. And there's really not much in regards to AP. And the important thing to remember about an AP class is it's a college level course. That's what AP means. And so most 9th graders really aren't ready for that level of a class. And there's just a couple classes available for 10th graders, and it opens up much more widely for 11th and 12th.
Okay, I did put the link to the UC factors for admission in the chat for everybody if you would like it there. College fairs scheduled for the spring. I don't believe we have any college fairs scheduled. Miss Nichols and the Career Center worked tirelessly all fall. We had over 100 colleges visit, and really fall is the busy time for college reps because in the spring they're reviewing applications. So it's a lot harder to get people out. But if we hear of any colleges fairs happening, we will certainly get that out to the community.
And if someone asking about summer internships for rising seniors, we have a lot of students asking this, and one because of COVID, but even before COVID, honestly, there are not tons of internships available for high school students. That really is more of a college student thing. But if a student has an interest in a type of a business, a type of job, they are definitely encouraged to reach out directly to a business that does that. They can say, here's my resume. I will be a high school senior. I'm really interested in learning more about this career, and I would love to spend some time with you. They could certainly do that. We don't really have a list of available internships for high school students to do during the summer, but students certainly can create these opportunities for themselves by doing a little bit of that legwork.
And if they're really interested in that experience, I would recommend looking at the course catalog for iQuest, as well as having your student attend the course fair to talk about iQuest, because it is an internship-based class, but it's during the school year, not the summer.
We don't have a volunteer hour requirement for graduating like that, so we don't collect volunteer hours and we don't track them. Someone's asking about, do Boy Scout hours count? Those are hours you would certainly put on, a student would certainly put on their college application under the activities section, but it's not something that we collect or require. And then another one is asking also about internship and jobs, like is there a better, say a student is working at Starbucks, is that not as good as doing an internship in a corporate? And the answer I think is no. A student needs to do what is best for them. And sometimes a student, I know I graduated college with some friends who've never really had a job, and I don't think that's great. So I think that your student working at Starbucks or anywhere like that is wonderful and is certainly valued when it comes to, again, looking at that whole picture of a student. This whole well-rounded student. Job skills are so important, and I don't think it matters where you get them.
Yes, students can meet with their counselor anytime throughout the year. We are available for walk-ins, break, lunch, or before and after school. Some of the counselors have different schedules. So if your student's like, I'm going after school, my counselor's never there, it's probably because their counselor is there before school. So have them try a different time of day. We also have clipboards outside of our office that they could sign in for.
Couple of questions about iQuest popping up. iQuest is an internship class that is offered to our seniors by interview only. So if your senior your soon-to-be senior for next year is interested in an internship option, they might want to apply for the iQuest class. And so that class meets once a week, and the other days of the week actually goes to an internship that or they arrange on their own, or if they can't do that, the teachers can also help, but the students do have to do the legwork to get the internship in place. So if that is something that your student is interested in and they earn high school credits for doing so, that is a good option to look at. And again, the course catalog is a really great place to see more about that. But we'll also be doing the electives fair coming up in the spring here, I think maybe January, so I guess that's winter. And the teachers will be there at a table to explain what the class is all about, so the student can find out more information then too.
All right, a recording of this session, fingers crossed, it downloads okay. It will be posted on our YouTube. It's also available on our counseling website, which we are working on making a little more streamlined, getting that ready for all of your questions about courses for next year. So please do check out our counseling website. There's a lot of good info there.
And Kelly, you'll be posting this recording on our website as well, right?
Yes, I posted to the YouTube and then post the YouTube to the website, and it's this beautiful little chain we have going. So I have taken up the lead on coordinating these events. So if anyone has an idea for a future topic, feel free to send me an email. If you have any questions that pertain to your individual student, as much as I would love to answer them all, please send them to your assigned counselor. I'll only take the questions about coffee with the counselor. For anything else, please forward it directly to your child's counselor, which can also be found on our website.
I do see a few questions about more specific college questions, and we've been planning a parent night for non-senior parents for college. So information will be coming at you as soon as we're able to get that together. So stay tuned for that. But I will also say on our website, we have what's called the Senior Survival Guide that we've put together over many years, adding to it and updating it every year, that has really all of the information about college applications. So if you want to continue this journey this morning, you could go on over to our website and click under college planning, the Senior Survival Guide, and you'll find it's a long document that has all of the questions that we've been getting today answered in there.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for taking time out of your morning. It will be posted on YouTube because I know we talked about a lot in a short period of time. So thank you for that. And we will see you soon. Have a great holiday season. And it was nice connecting with you today.
Thanks, everyone.